Hey guys, Dan here with Sterling Self Defense with a little tech talk. All right, there's a lot of rumors going around about firing pins, and everyone's like, high power, you're going to break your firing pin on the VKS, and blah, blah, blah. That's basically just made up by one of DK's little cronies he hired to, talk good about him in his commercials. That Karen O'Brien guy. I broke 60 firing pins in 2 months. That's 2 firing pins every day for 2 months. Most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. Well, anyway, that's just a scam they put out there. Hello, Badger. To get people to buy DK's guns because he can't get high power. So he's like, oh, no, I set my guns down low because it's better and I don't want to break them. No, he just doesn't do any technical or internal work. Doesn't know how to get them up to high power, even though he says he does, and he doesn't. We've already proved that. But anyway, firing pins do occasionally break. Usually the culprit is, I always check all my bolts that I order when they come right from the factory, whether they're in a gun or a part that I order. And sometimes what happens is they're not Loctited, or they're only Loctited on one side. So they loosen up. And if they loosen up, you got your bolt and air chamber going up and down on the firing pin, just like this. Well, I got it backwards. Just like this, back and forth. So if it's loose, it's wobbling, and it'll get caught on an angle like this, and it shears it right off. So basically, the most important thing is don't have a loose firing pin. Another thing that I noticed, yesterday, I never break any firing pins, so I don't actually see it myself. I hear from some other people here and there that break them. So what I did was I took a bolt, I loosened the firing pin just a little bit to test it, and so I had it loose in there, and I shot it at low power, like 20 joules, stock VKS right out of the box, jacked all the way out, so it's like 18, 20 joules. Fired it 10 times, 11 times, 12th time, boom, popped it, broke the firing pin, because it was loose, and it was wobbling, and at some point, doesn't matter what power you're at, that hits on an angle, it's going to bend it the first time, second time it's going to shear it right off. Now, so it has to be tight. And there's also a weak point that I found in these. Oh, sorry, dropping stuff down. Now, these are Grub screws. Let me grab a stock Grub screw here. Show you what that looks like. All right, the glasses on. I don't even know where they are. There they are. All right. So this is the Grub screw right here, 1/2-inch Grub screw. This is factory equipment for the FSC and VKS. And the FSC and VKS, all the same screws, all the same firing pins. There's no difference. So if there's a major problem with a First Strike or Pepper Ball firing pins, it would happen in the FSC too. But those guys don't realize it's the same exact thing in both bolts. The only difference is the little chamfering on the top of the VKS bolt has a light chamfer. And it's VKS, let me grab a, FSC's got a bigger chamfer. Now, so that's the only difference. Air chamber is exactly the same, firing pins exactly the same. No difference. So that's the Grub screw. Now, 1/2-inch Grub screw. Now, you have an Allen key socket in this. So you have the Allen key socket that goes right in there. So basically, it's hollow. Where the Allen key goes in, it's hollow. So it's, of course, going to be very weak here. But one thing that I thought was happening, exactly what's happening. Now, let me Here's one installed in the firing pin. Just the way it is, sticking out exactly what it should from the factory. Now, if you look at the Allen key, it goes in there. Now, you've got it hollow all the way inside to here. See how far that goes? So, the reason that this is so weak is that it's hollow in the point that it's got to be the strongest. This point right here is in between screwing into the bolt and screwing into this firing pin. So all the pressure's on this one point right here, and it's only like 4/1000ths of an inch of metal. So it's the weakest point of the whole fucking screw. I don't know why they designed it like that. So that's why it shears off so easy there. It doesn't take much of anything. So there's not much you can do about that for the fact that you got to be able to tighten it down. You need a pocket. So I came up with something a little different. I ordered longer stainless steel, very strong Grub screws. Now the pocket is, as deep as it normally is. So what I'm doing is red Loctiting these screws, installing them, put a little red Loctite in here, break the vacuum so it drops in there, red Loctite your screw, then you put your screw all the way down, 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 and all the way down into the firing pin. Now that's, say it's red Loctited like I did all these right here. Then what I do is you measure what it should be at factory sticking into the bolt, and I forget the measurement offhand, but it's most people don't have calipers, so it's like 4 threads. Count 4 threads up, then you cut it. They're very easy to cut. Pair of linesman pliers, something like this. Screw is very easy to cut. Go 5 threads up, cut on the fifth thread. Now it's gonna be a little buggered on your cut, so you have a grinder. You can do it with a piece of sandpaper too. You can do it with a file, but you just got to file the end down till it's nice and flat, and then file little angles on the side and test it in, make sure it screws in and out, and that's it. And make sure you file it right down to 3 threads, so it's the same measurement. It is. I'll put the measurements up on the screen. I'll measure them afterwards. I don't remember exactly what they were, but now you have no pocket in your screw for an Allen key, but you don't need it anymore. Now you have a flathead that you can install it in. You only need the pocket when you're installing this screw into the firing pin. So once you cut off this piece, it will look like this right here, all filed down. Now there is no weak point inside this screw because the pocket is gone. Now this is going to be a super strong screw that's never going to break, unless of course you don't Loctite and it gets loose. So when installing this, you're going to Loctite this and grab your screwdriver. Best thing is a fat screwdriver. I modify my own. File it down, make it real thick and fat so it fits real tight onto that big slot. This screwdriver is just for those. Then screw it up, put it on, hold up your finger, put it on there, screw it up inside your bolt. Right up in and screw it in. And then, clean it, when you put the Loctite on here, make sure not to get it all over the firing pin. Clean it up as good as you can. Paper towel with you, best thing in the world. Keep it nice and clean. Screw it up in there and then let it sit for 24 hours. Get it real snug and tight up in there. Let it sit for 24 hours and dry. Then you can reinstall everything back in your gun and you shouldn't ever have a problem. I tested one of these out, like 100 rounds. Boom, 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 boom. It was tight. It cured for 24 hours. So put 100 rounds through it, not a problem at all. But super strong now, and there's no pocket in there. That pocket is the weak point. That's where, anytime it broke, that's where it was breaking. But the most important thing is that you Loctite both sides and it doesn't get loose. Because if it gets loose, no matter how strong the metal is, it'll break if it's loose because it's going to get a wobble at some point. So as long as they're not loose, you won't have a problem. This is, a little overkill, but I'm into overkill. I'm okay with that. But I know I'll never have a problem with those. But I was never breaking them anyway. I shoot FSCs at 170 joules, VKSs at 126 joules. Rapid fire, like they say, oh, you can't rapid fire, that's why those guys break all the guns. I don't break nothing. You guys see me rapid fire in videos all the time. Bam, bam, bam. Just about fully freaking automatic, and I never have a problem. And that's all at high joules. So as long as your firing pins are in there good and Loctited, and they're not loose, you're not going to have a problem. And there's no difference between the FSC ones and the VKS bolts and screws and firing pins. They're all exactly the same. So even my new bolts, my new super bolts, same thing, you know. The only difference is the, like I said, the chamfer on the top, the VKS, and the VKS got a little more output. But all the testing I'm doing and the guns you see I'm doing with the new FSC expanded bolt that I make, getting high joules, no problem, good consistency. You know, that chamfer is really not doing anything. Makes no difference in my testing so far. So that'll take care of the problem without a doubt, and it gets rid of the weak point in that socket. That hollow little screw was just bad engineering on First Strike side. So, but they were thinking about paintball and weren't really concerned with it, I guess. So we're using heavier projectiles, so there's a lot more movement in there, a lot more chance the pin will loosen up. So there was that other guy, the Karen O'Brien guy, you know, new to everything, knows nothing about nothing, but ran to a machinist and came out a couple months ago. We haven't heard from him since. Well, I got the mod, I fixed the VKS. Look, and he came, made a video and said, I machined like he machined. He went to a machinist, and his way of fixing it was drilling out the inside of this and using a bigger screw. Thinking, yeah, that'll fix it. It's a bigger screw. It ain't going to break. That's the best idea. Yeah, and I saw him do that video. I didn't say nothing because I was waiting for the secondary video where, oh, it didn't work, it broke. He just never came out with another video. The problem with that is if you open up that screw from a number 6 to a number 8, which is what he did, and retap it, now your bolt is weak. Here, it doesn't have enough strength. There's not enough metal left. So, and he had it jammed all the way up. Doesn't realize this little rounded pocket here, that's there for a reason. You can't run your screw up into this. It's rounded for a reason. That's where it meets the projectile. Notice the projectile sits on there perfectly? That's where it hits it. That's why it's rounded. And if you run your screw all the way up, your screw is going to be in the projectile, not the way it's designed, the bolt pushing your projectile. That's why that's rounded like that. And if you use a bigger screw, it's thicker, it's got to go up higher, and it negates the pocket. So you can't do that. And it makes it weak. And when you make it weak, I'll show you the next problem that happens. This is an old First Strike bolt, 15 years old or whatever. But you see the cracks? When you don't have enough metal there, there's too much force, you actually break the bolt itself. Some people said it can't be done. It can be done because I've done it. This was in a T9.1 a couple years back. But this is one of their worst designed bolt heads. It just didn't have enough metal there to support that firing pin. So ended up breaking. Not a big deal. But that's it, and that's a way to fix that problem. So if you guys need, I'll put these screws on the site, or you can get them on wherever. They're number 6 30-second pitch thread screws. So 6, number 32, and the length doesn't matter. Just make sure you get 3/4 of an inch or longer. You need some, some room to cut off the pocket. This one, I believe, is like an 1.25 inches long, but I'm cutting most of it off to get rid of the pocket and to get rid of the weak point. So now we just have solid screw holding that firing pin all the way up into the bolt. And, a lot stronger. These ones are Loctited. I just got to cut them all back and grind them down a little bit. And that is that. So that is my fix for the firing pin, and I tried it. Works out great. No problems, and now no weak points. All right. And here is the measurement. Going to the end of the screw. There you go. And here is the measurement. Going to the end of the screw. There you go.
What do DK do? He takes something like that and turns it into something like that with 5 times the power that it originally had. What do?
And hey, another add-on to it. I was on YouTube last night, and one of DK's shorts pops up. You know, ones he puts out there to sell his guns. It's a short. I'll put it up so you can see it. Ridiculous. DK do this. So he shows a picture of one of the old style VKSs, the one he gets from wherever he gets them from. It's an old yellow one, you know, super old. You can tell, been sitting on a shelf or in a warehouse, wherever they got it from. But he goes, oh, I take this and I turn it into this. But this gets 5 times the power. He's trying to say, yeah. So he takes a stock VKS, he hacksaws the barrel in half down to 6 inches, and he paints it. And this is supposed to give you 300 joules. That would be 5 times the power of a stock VKS. So he's saying you're going to get 5 times the power. Probably thinking in his head, it's 5 times the money he's charging you compared to what you should be paying. But he's saying 5 times the power. So that's 300 joules. So basically, he's giving you an AR-15. Same power. Wow, that's amazing. I've been working on VKSs for 6 years now. And I was able to double the power. I thought that was a lot. But he's getting 5 times the power by cutting the barrel and painting it. That's amazing. Kind of funny how he paints over the serial numbers. Wonder why he does that. Anyway, point being is, you take a stock VKS and you cut the barrel in half, you're getting half the power. That's how it works. You cut that barrel in half, you're going from 60 joules down to 30 joules, guaranteed. The paint doesn't do anything. And the little add-ons don't do nothing. You don't do any internal work. But that's why in my shorties, I do internal work. So when I have shorter barrels, 6, 7, 8, 9 shorter barrels, my internal work makes up for that loss. But without internal work and upping the power, you cut that barrel in half, you've got half the power. You now have a VKS that's shooting 30 joules. Not 300 joules like he's shown in the video. This is what DK does or whatever. 5 times the power. That's how he gets these new people. Yeah, I'm the only person in the world getting that kind of power. 5 times the power. I'll never show you in the video or a chronograph, but just take my word. It's 5 times the power. No, it's 5 times the price. At 30 joules on a VKS. So be leery. You see him out there. Don't fall for it, you new guys. Most of the guys know it, but don't fall for that. He ain't getting more power than anybody. He gets less power than anybody out there. He doesn't do any internal work, knows nothing about the internals. Paint and cutting barrels does not give you more power. It only gives you less. And painting doesn't affect your power at all. It just affects covering up the serial number and hiding where it actually came from. All right, just had to throw that in there, guys. I will see you on the next one.